and welcome to Lending a Helping Hand. I'm your host, Erica D. On today's show, we'll be speaking with Miss Suzanne Donovan for Step Up Savannah. Miss Suzanne will be giving us her insight on poverty that's taking place right here within our community. Last episode, I told our audience that this week we'll be discussing poverty and we'll be speaking to two amazing women that are doing what they can to decrease poverty right here within our own community. Let me give you a little insight on our today's guest. Ms. Suzanne Donovan received her bachelor's degree in politics from the University of Santa Cruz. She then went on to earn her master's degree in journalism from the University of Berkeley Graduate School of Journalism. Prior to her job now as the executive director of Step Up Savannah, Donovan worked as deputy director of communications and policy, where she handled external and internal communications and policy strategies to promote Step Up Savannah as the leading voice on poverty issues. She oversaw the Neighborhood Leadership Academy for Step Up and trained neighborhood leaders to broaden their understanding of community issues and develop effective advocacy skills. Well, we have Ms. Suzanne Donovan over at Armstrong, where she just finished a poverty simulation. Do we have her? Okay. Good afternoon, Ms. Donovan. Thank you for joining us today. For the ones who are not familiar with Step Up Savannah, what kind of organization are you?
Well, we're a nonprofit organization. We're based in Savannah, Georgia. In fact, we're right downtown. And we exist to work on the issue of poverty in Savannah and Chatham County. It's an organization that was started in about 2005. And it came out of the city of Savannah. It came out of a very deep and well-done research study that the former mayor, Otis Johnson, actually helped to commission. They joined with the county, with the Board of Education, with area businesses like Georgia Power and the Chamber of Commerce, the Savannah Economic Development Authority, and work with social service providers as well. So the idea was to bring together all of the different entities in Savannah that might have something to do and could help to address a long-standing issue, which is the high rate of poverty here in Savannah.
What can your organization offer for the community? What type of assistance do your organization offer?
Well, Step Up Savannah itself is more of a collaborative entity. So we bring to the table all of these different direct social service providers and business and government leaders and neighborhood leaders. With the idea that we can together come up with more innovative, creative ideas about how to address poverty. We do have a few services, direct services that we provide. One of those is in the area of workforce development. We run a job training program called the Chatham Apprentice Program, and that operates on a regular, ongoing basis, where we provide job readiness training for adults. We also offer in the area of wealth building. We really work to, through the Bank on Savannah program and financial literacy or financial education classes. We work to raise people's understanding of why their finances are so critical, and how to manage your own budget and how to understand credit and reading a credit report and that kind of thing. But many of the direct services that we point people to are those that are actually provided by our partner agencies. So there are, 90-some agencies that are part of the Step Up Savannah umbrella, if you will, or network. So depending on an individual or family's need, what we do is help to direct them to the right agency. So people often call the office with a particular problem. They're about to lose a job, so where might they be able to go? So we really try to listen and then figure out who is the best agency out there to help them.
Some do not take poverty into being a social problem. Do you feel like poverty is by choice?
No. I mean, I don't think it's a choice issue, and I think that's actually not even an accurate way, I think, to sort of pose that question. You know, poverty is a very, very complex issue. I mean, it is one that typically, for the most part, people are can be either born into circumstances, or many, many people now, and this has been so true over the last 10 years, are living paycheck to paycheck, and when they lose their job, you know, they're that close to falling into poverty, right? So a real, I would say, misunderstanding about poverty is in our country, in fact, the majority of people who are living in poverty are people who are working. They may not be working to their full capacity, and they may not be working in full-time jobs, but even there are people who are working 2 jobs, you know, right here in Savannah that are still living in poverty. And that has to do with the actual wage rate and the cost of living and what it takes to be here. Housing, for instance, is a very, very high cost in our community. And so all of those things contribute to it. Education level can contribute to poverty. So when I talk with people that you know, talk about poverty as a choice, I usually try to get at what their experience is with people who are living in poverty, because many people have an idea of what that means, but they have not really spent a lot of time, you know, talking and trying to assist people that are in poverty. So again, I would say it's not a matter of choice. We all know that there are, you know, a very, very teeny number of people who are in our system who are trying to use the system for, you know, for whatever benefits they can. But that is an increasingly difficult thing to do, because we don't even have a welfare system anymore. You know, again, that's another real misnomer in this country generally, and certainly here in Georgia. The number of people that are on temporary assistance for needy families, which is what the former welfare system is teeny. I mean, we have, you know, very, very few people. So it's not like there is a big, you know, sort of social welfare system that even holds people up any longer. And people, believe me, are not choosing, you know, to be in that system.
How do you feel about we as a community trying to put an end to poverty? Can it even be done?
That is probably one of the most difficult questions we face, you know, I mean, which is why there has been such a, you know, concerted effort for so long, people trying to sort of unravel that. I think on a very personal level, and I think it's very important to bring that down to a very personal level. In our own families, we need to really encourage our kids to stay in school. I know that sounds very, you know, trite, but you know, sort of one of the top predictors of people that are in poverty in our country are people who are not well educated. And particularly, again, as you go into a 21st century economy, that issue is going to become even more poignant. So if you don't have, and in fact, we need to get advanced degrees at this point. So number one is getting education. And for those of us that did not get a high school diploma or a GED, you know, it is never too late. It is difficult, I understand that, it is a challenge, but you can do that. And there are some decent resources out there, you know, to get an education as an adult. So I think that is very, very critical, and probably the number one thing. The second thing is understanding your own finances, because even people with very small incomes, whatever that might be, you can save. And we encourage people to do that. I mean, again, it is a challenge, but you have to look at, you know, what your expenses are and what your earnings are, and, you know, come up with ways to cut. And that is a real tough one, particularly in our culture, because, you know, hardly need to point out, it's a very materialistic culture, and one that most of us value things. And so we see ourselves so often in terms of our own worth, in terms of the things that we own. And so we need to, as individuals, really work within our own families and talk about what is valuable, you know? I mean, this is really getting down to the micro level, but I think these things are really, really important. As a social system, I think, you know, we can only work within the sort of communities in which we live and work and go to school, right? So we can try to stand up for those kinds of values in those settings. In my organization, we work to try to educate people about their finances and help them understand that, you know, again, it doesn't matter, you know, how big your income is, but you can save. You can use institutions, banking institutions, which is, you know, we all have very mixed feelings about banks now, especially after that last recession. But, you know, at this point, if you're not in the banking system, it is very, very difficult to get credit, to even find decent places to live, and there are even employers now that will check your credit. So all of these things are sort of enmeshed with one another, and we have to be thinking, you know, smartly about all of them. So our finances, our education, and then be working. You know, the education level is what will help us get into better paying jobs. And then on the policy level, we need to, I think, be advocating for jobs that pay well. And, you know, there's a huge debate nationally right now about minimum wage. And I think it's a very healthy debate because without having wages that can sustain families, there are many of us that will have great difficulty getting out of poverty.
What is the initial action plan for Step Up Savannah? And has it made any progress lately?
Yeah, the action plan was a great document. So when the city decided to really dive in and look at the issue of poverty in Savannah and Chatham County, they worked with city staff and folks, researchers at the University of Georgia. And they did a deep dive and went back 30 years, basically. So the action plan is based on 30 years of history, basically, of saying, you know, what are these sort of barriers? And identified a whole series of barriers that can, together, collectively, help to sort of keep people in poverty. So it included this range of things, again, education level. They also talked about child care, health care, wage levels, jobs and workforce development, training, affordable housing. All of those are pieces that the action plan looked at and basically laid out sort of a roadmap of how the community working on these different issues might be able to move forward. So some of the issues, for instance, I mentioned affordable housing. One of the things that Step Up Savannah has been able to do, identifying that as an issue early on, we helped to create the very first affordable housing fund, which exists right here in Savannah. It's the first in Georgia. And the whole intention of that is to try to bring more resources, more money, frankly, to the table to actually build and rehab housing in our community so that we have decent housing. We also, again, worked on the issue of workforce development. Our Chatham Apprentice Program is one of the programs that came out of that, identifying it as an issue. Transportation is another huge issue that was identified in the action plan. And while I think our Chatham CAT, our system, the transit system that we have here, is one that can be improved, it has gone, the improvements from the time of the action plan to where it is now are really tremendous. We've got a much more robust bus system. We still need to do more. So one of the things that they identified in the action plan is that CAT needed to get out to the west side because that's where more higher paying jobs are. And CAT, itself has really been working on that. That is a classic example of a political issue as much as anything, right? Because municipalities had to opt in to be to allow the bus system to work in those communities. And so there were a whole series, it's sort of layer upon layer upon layer of issues that were identified. And Step Up has worked, with volunteers from, again, business, government, and social service agencies and nonprofits to try to sort of systematically address each one of those issues. It's not successful in everything, and it's a sort of an issue that you have to just keep working on over time, and that's why the organization continues to exist.
Well, thank you, Ms. Donovan, for being with us again. And if you guys have any questions regarding Step Up Savannah, she can be reached at 912-232-6747. Or you can reach her via email at sdonovan@stepupsavannah.org. Again, poverty is one of the biggest social problems that is hitting our community hard. We as one unit should collectively strive to put an end to this problem. Stay tuned for Friday's episode featuring our guest Sister Pat from St. Joseph's Community Center. Again, have a great day.